Hello, um, my name is Kalima, and you can find me on Instagram as Kalima Chia. Yes, and I also have a blog that is sort of neglected, and it is under the name Moppy Jane Crafts. I thought I'd record just a little something just to see what it would look like in my dining room to record. Sorry, I keep looking down at myself because that's easy to do, and just make sure I'm actually looking at the right place. And so I have been watching podcasts and floss tubers for a while, and they just make it look so easy. It is not. So anyhow, sorry for any weirdness and looking around that I may do. Looking down, looking to the side, all that kind of stuff. What I want my channel to be, I don't know. I do a lot of different things. I cross stitch. That's just the first thing that came to mind, but that is not actually my first medium. Probably I would say sewing would be my first fibery medium, and then I knit and I crochet. I have been running, as in like running outside, not just running in life, but I've been gardening, and I like to do some canning. I'm not much of a cook. I guess baking would probably, if I had to do something in the kitchen, that would be something I'm a little bit more successful at. Yeah, so those are just a few of the things that I do that keep me busy, and I like to do. So I thought today I would show a couple of projects that I'm working on. The first is a cross stitch pattern, and it is a pattern that I started quite a few years ago, actually. 2015, it was a mystery stitch along for the frosted let me start that again. The Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery, and it is called Storytime Sampler. This is the pattern. So in 2015, January, I believe, of 2015, each month the company would release a one of these frames. These little ovals here are a frame, and so each one was a mystery for the month. This is gonna be great. So eloquent with my words. Great. So looking down here at my project, so this is where I'm at right now. Ooh, it's a little low. The camera's a little low. So I'm working on this frame here, which is the last frame that I have to finish. And on the pattern, you'll see it is this one, which I don't know if you can tell, excuse me, but that is Phantom of the Opera, which I might be the only person that has not seen the Phantom of the Opera ever. I haven't seen a play, I haven't seen the movie, I have not read the book, and also I have no desire to. The storyline does not interest me in the least. So I did stitch that frame, as it was called for in the pattern. And then I realized that I had really wanted to add in Jane Eyre, because Jane Eyre is my favorite story. I've read the book a few times. I have multiple renditions of the movie. I love it. So I thought, well, maybe I could figure out how to kind of alter that, those two, the couple, into Jane and Rochester. So it took me a long time just thinking about it, about what I would want the finished product to look like. How could I make it actually look like Jane and Rochester? And the good thing about being this far behind on a stitch along is that I have the benefit of seeing other people's work and kind of seeing how other people have also been so creative in taking the frame as it was originally intended, and then altering it and making it their own into a different character. I don't think that I've seen anyone do Jane Eyre, but I have seen people do Beauty and the Beast, and oh gosh, Mary Poppins, The Hobbit, or I guess Lord of the Rings. I'm not sure if it's specific to The Hobbit. Let's see, somebody did Doctor Who. Anyhow, so all great ideas, right? And so I had a bit of a ponder and a bit of a Google search and mini pattern searching, and this is extraordinarily rough. Oops, sorry, not very prepared, I guess, over here. So I came up with this sketch here, and I know that it is very rough. So there's Jane and Rochester, and it's hard to see right here, but that is a dog, because Pilot is Rochester's dog in the book, and also in pretty much every movie they work Pilot in there. And then this is, it's hard to see, but this part back here is the house, and then very rough right here, but that is a bird, and he's kind of sideways, looking backwards. And so anyhow, that was my first sketch, and I don't think I'm giving anything away from the paid for pattern, because that is what I came up with. And so anyhow, I know people get how they get about that kind of a thing, but anyhow, so then I realized that I didn't like that you can't see Rochester's legs, and there's plenty of room, right, to have them be up higher. So I decided I needed to start over, and this is basically the same, but you can see his legs, which I felt like he needed to have legs. So there. And then these are not really the colors that I'm finishing, sort of. I did decide Jane's dress, in the books, she is always described as being plain and sensible, and I don't know, it doesn't stand out to me that the books would have, or the book, singular, sorry, would have been specific about color, but I do think that she did not wear bright colors, and so I thought that I would do gray initially. And then I kind of thought, well, you know, Rochester is also kind of portrayed as dark. And so I thought, oh gosh, this is just going to be a gray frame, gray and black and kind of dark. And so I didn't really want that to be what the finished product looks like, because I think Jane is very hopeful, honestly. And so I am going to do a purple, but it is, I'm kind of still debating. I have a few colors here. This is DMC floss. It looks way more purple on camera. This is kind of more of a hued, heathered hue. And it doesn't have like a colored name, it's just a number. It's 3041. So there, that kind of captures it a little bit. So it's kind of a muted purple. And then I thought I could do her collar in this. So I thought those kind of looked nice together. And they're not, you know, bold, splashy colors, but they do have some bit of color, which I appreciate for her. And then for Rochester, let's see, I decided this is a really dark green. So I don't know if you can kind of tell that that's green. But I thought I would do his jacket in this darker green color, and then his pants in this like gray. It's kind of like a browny gray undertone there. And then I'm doing sort of like a vest for him, and so this is like a nice navy blue. I thought that would be kind of good. So those are all, yeah, and that's pretty good. It shows the color's pretty true there. So and if you're interested, the green is DMC 500. This gray is DMC 844. And this is DMC 3750. I just got these at Joann's. Joann Fabric and Crafts, I think is the name of the store. I'm pretty sure you all know what I'm talking about. Anyhow, so I thought those complemented each other pretty well. So they're, you know, very individual. Ooh, sorry about it. To the characters. And then the background, I'm still kind of figuring out what I want to do for the house. I still don't really like the idea of a big, you know, monstrosity house situation, but yeah, so I have their hair done, and in the movies, Jane's hair, the character that is whoever is Jane, pretty much they all have dark hair. And honestly, the character in the book does not really describe herself in detail. There are a couple of places where other people describe her, and again, mostly it is she's described as being plain and small, very slight, and Rochester describes her as being a fairy, and there's one scene, this is what I found in doing the Google search, because I didn't want to reread the book. I've already spent, you know, long enough on taking my time doing this pattern. Anyhow, one of the Google searches I did was somebody who had kind of picked apart the story in detail. Sorry, a moth just flew in my back door. I'm sitting in my dining room, and I have this direction over here, there's a sliding glass door, and I don't have a screen for it, which is kind of a bummer, but that is one of my house projects. It's on the list. It's an extensive list, as you can imagine. I think everybody does have an extensive list for their house projects. Anyway, tangent. So, a moth just flew in. I'll get it later. Not worried about it. So, yes, Jane. So, in one scene, it's when they're getting ready to, anyway, I'm not going to give anything away if you haven't read or watched the story. But there is one scene where Rochester describes her as being hazel, and hazel hair and eyes, and she, in her thoughts in the description, corrects him and says she has green eyes. So anyhow, I did a search on what hazel hair color. I haven't ever heard of hair being referred to as hazel. I've heard of eyes being referred to as hazel. But anyhow, so that's kind of my interpretation. That looks a lot more brown, red. I'm not sure if I can get it to be the actual what color it is, but it's a lot lighter than what the interpretation of the character would be from the movies. But I'm leaving Rochester's hair as dark. Also, this little frame here is one that I was inspired. Oh shoot, I should have written this down. I'm not remembering her name right now. There's a lady on Instagram that I don't follow, but I do follow, or I had been searching the hashtag of the Storytime Sampler, Stitch Along, I think, or anyway, there's a couple of hashtags that people were using, and excuse me, one of the people that used the hashtag and did some stitching had done a Lord of the Rings frame, and she did do the circle door for the Shire, or bag end, I believe. Anyhow, so I did take an inspiration from her. I feel like her name is like Annie Schatz or Annie Potts. I should have been more prepared. I do apologize. This is kind of a spur of the moment kind of thing. Otherwise, I probably would have put a little bit of concealer on my giant zit here and maybe worn some lipstick, because my mom always tells me that just that little bit of color just brightens up my face. Anyhow, I'm probably not going to post this. It's completely ridiculous. Anyhow, so let's see, what was this frame? Oh, yes. Okay. The pattern was this little Charles Dickens Christmas story, I believe, which is fitting because that was December's frame, which was the last one. They did include a bonus frame, which was something that I can't think of right now, and I don't see it right next to me. Anyway, it was a single guy. Let's see. Oh, The Great Gatsby. Yes. I won't show the pattern, the Great Gatsby bonus thing, because it is the chart, and I don't know how quick people are and how many people would bother to take a screenshot of a video to then, you know, steal a chart, but I don't know, maybe people do. My point being that while I think that Christmas Story is very appropriate, I didn't really also feel a connection to that story, and so I thought one story that for me has always been a classic, which Storytime Sampler. So if you'll see here, I don't know if this is going to film backwards. It says Storytime Classics right there. And I thought for the longest time that that is what the title of the pattern was. And so Storytime Classics to me is what story is a classic, right? Like, what is a classic to me? And this is ultimately going to be on my wall. And so I wanted it to kind of be a little bit more personal to what stories I connect with, right? So The Hobbit actually is a huge story for me in my life. Wow, I'm at 20 minutes just rambling about cross stitch. That's cool. So, yeah, so The Hobbit. When I was a kid, I had a record player because, let's see, I was a kid in the 80s. So yeah, I had a record player and a record of dramatized, I don't know the right word there. I think you know what I mean. Sorry. This is so good. Dramatized? I don't know. Still don't know the right word. Anyhow, oh gosh, this is gonna drive me. A narrated version of the book. And so it had character voices and the such. And I think it's Rankin. They did have an animated movie, and I saw it actually years later, and I think it was just the audio version of that cartoon version of The Hobbit. And so I remember listening to that when I was a kid and loving it. Sorry. So then fast forward many moons later, and you'll be interested to know that my late husband and I loved the Lord of the Rings movies that came out, and we would go to every movie as it was released, and turns out those released in December. I can't think of the year right now. I feel like it was like early 2000s. My memory is not so great on years. But anyhow, so my husband and I would go to see those as they were released, and then when they came out on video, we bought all the videos, and then when they did release the extended versions, we bought all the extended versions. So we had like 2 copies of all of the movies, which is great because we love them. And honestly, the Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, I think was the first movie in that series, and we wore that disc out because my husband would like to listen to what we called a comfy movie as we would be going to sleep, and inevitably that would be the one that we would put on, and then I would always wake up at the orc scenes and like a war scene or something, and it would just be like super loud, and I would turn it off, and so that was a special thing. And my husband is actually deceased, and so I wanted to put something into this cross stitch pattern that was, you know, personal and meant something to me, and that definitely has a strong memory, and it's good memories, and so it was important to me to add. So this, okay, so my husband passed away before The Hobbit was released. The you know, there was the trilogy, the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King. Those were the three that we saw together. And then The Hobbit was released after, and that was also a trilogy. But anyway, so I was kind of like torn as to how did I want to do this. Do I want to pick Frodo, which would be the Fellowship of the Ring series, or do I want it to be Bilbo, which is The Hobbit? So for me growing up, it would be Bilbo, right? Because that is the main character in The Hobbit, which is the story that I would listen to growing up. Or would it be Frodo? Anyway, so I think this could be either one. And that's the conclusion I came to. I'm leaving it up to chance. And then I don't know if you can kind of see. I mean, I know you can see, but I don't know if you can tell that this is Gandalf in the background. Gandalf the Grey, which would go for either set of Hobbit-y stories, right? Because he did not turn white until later on. And so I feel like that's fitting. And then I did do Bag End, and then these could be the Misty Mountains, could be just the mountains that they go over when they are on their travels. It could be any mountains, honestly. So that works too. And then he does have a sword here, which both hobbits did use the same sword, and I don't think you can tell. Well, maybe you can. It's a very light blue, which would mean there are orcs present. A little nerdy humor for you. You're welcome. Oh, so good. So good. And then I did the ring as the little focus token symbol, which if you can tell that all of them have a little, oh, well, that's being covered up there by Harry's face. And honestly, I don't think, no, yeah, I did a carrot, oop, here we are, a carrot for Anne of Green Gables, because Gilbert Blythe calls her carrots. And so I thought that was appropriate. That was an edit that I did. Also, I changed this little thing here, and I might end up changing this again. I don't think you can tell that's a book, like an open splayed pages book. But that is what that was intended to look like. I don't know if it does, but anyhow, I kind of thought I might take it out and redo it in darker colors. So that's what I'm working on for cross stitch, and I'm really close to finishing. And I'm not gonna do this title banner here, this Storytime Classics. I decided I'm not doing it because I don't really feel like it. I feel like I've spent, what are we in, 2019? So 4 years. I've spent 4 years on this pattern. I think that's long enough, and I'm ready to move on to a different pattern. So what is this pattern being held in, you ask? Well, I will tell you. Sorry, I'm just getting all my little threads here off. So this is in a project bag that I made, and it's the same fabric front and back. I love this fabric. I love it so much. Like seriously, I just love it so much. My mom lives about 3.5 hours south from where I live, and so when I go to visit, she has an amazing fabric stash, right? So she goes to thrift stores and yard sales and all this kind of stuff, and she picks up fabric for super duper cheap. And I do a lot of sewing and quilting, and so she inevitably, and she does I guess, yeah, she quilts as well. And so she uses some of the fabric, but some of it she'll just pick up because she thinks I might be able to use it. And this was one of those pieces. And I don't know if you would know much about Liberty of London, but Liberty fabric is really pretty, and it's kind of this sort of feel. It's I don't know if this is a repro of that, but it is reminiscent to me. And then I had this fun zipper in my stash. Let's see, I should mention that so I do sew, and I make lots of, you know, like zippered project bags. Mostly I do, I don't think I have one right close to me to where I could show you easily. No, I don't. Sorry, I have, ooh, totally off frame there. Great. I have a basket over here of my next project that I'm going to show you after I quit rambling on. So this this particular project bag, oh, you can see it's shiny right here, so that's good. Excuse me. So it's a pocket, and it comes up here and there, and oh, there's some threads. Very appropriate. So the tutorial for this bag with the vinyl is Kia B. I think that she has a YouTube channel. I think it's Kia B Quilting. I found it by doing a Google search, as I do for lots of things. I think I just searched vinyl zippered project bag or something similar to that, because I had been wanting to do a vinyl zippered project bag for a really long time, but I had not actually sewn with vinyl before, and I did do a couple of test runs on my own, and it was a little bit less than stellar, you know, just really not what I kind of wanted to do. You know what, I'm gonna see if this will hold for a second.